Supernatural Season 15, Episode 4, Atomic Monsters. So, after the crazy sad episode that we had with Episode 3 and the character deaths, or, just characters detaching themselves from the Winchesters, this episode I count as like the insane mystery episode where it just brings up a million questions. Of course, all of this has to do with Chuck's side of the story outside of the very beginning of the episode, which I don't even know what to think about that. So I'm going to save all of the really cool stuff for the end of my review, because there's so much to talk about for like Chuck's side of the story, especially including the dream. I just assume that that's going to be in line with him. But the main case of this episode, it's the classic, we've gone through a lot, we need to do a case. It happens 100 times. It's happened a million times. Like, it just always happens. They go through some big thing. It's like, hey, we just need to get some fresh air. We need to go do a case. Have an amazingly funny episode, or a funny moment, I should say, the breakfast scene, where it's like, yeah, I got some of the vegan bacon and stuff. And then Sam tries it, and he's like, that's regular bacon. He's like, damn right it is. And he's the meat man. I thought that was super fun. Like, all that, hilarious. The case itself, very entertaining, actually. Dean, like the dude on the scooter, that was funny. When they actually find out what really went down, it was one of the cooler cases. It's always the best when it's either actually a human and it's just like a darker element to it, or it's one of those different twists on the normal formula where, of course, something's going on. Honestly, the whole episode I was watching, I was like, oh, I bet they're going to be witches. Somebody's going to be a witch. I feel like whenever it's some weird mystery and it's like there's no actual clues, boom, witches. They something happens and then it's a witch. I was wrong this time, but I feel like whenever it's this weird thing and there's like no true answers, something weird's going on and poof, it's a witch. Turns out it really was a vampire, because they're like, well, what's going on with the fake fangs and stuff like that? Still slightly confused by that, because I guess the point was to be like, yeah, it was a vampire and stuff, but it was supposed to kind of push people away because it just seemed too weird. It was like, oh, it's a vampire. Like, odds are you aren't going to come across Sam and Dean, who actually know what vampires are, or any other hunters. It was just like, that's weird. It's a fang. So maybe that's what that was. I still don't really get why they did like the fake fang thing, but going through it, I was like, okay, seemed like it was going to be the one girl, and it definitely seemed like she wasn't really that sad. Like, she's going through the speech, and she's like, she starts the speech, and then she's like, okay, hold on. And then she does it again, and they do the slow clap and stuff, and I was like, it's definitely going to be her. Then it wasn't. She said something, and then you can see her braces, and it's like, oh, do you have braces? And she's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, that's odd and stuff. Obviously, it's not her if we're going the vampire route, which is why I was definitely like, it's got to be witches or something. Like, they're doing that to throw off the scent from something else. It just ultimately did turn out to end up being a vampire, except it wasn't who we thought it was going to end up being. It ended up being the son, who was, the football star with the crappy parents, where it's like, they cancel the game because, the girl dies. And then it's like, hey, can we not cancel the game, or can we do it during halftime? Because we have a scout coming in for our son, and he's going to go off to college and stuff. Turns out the overprotective, seemingly douchebag parents, well, no, they were just douchebags in that part, period. That had nothing to do with the vampire stuff. They were just douchebags in that specific thing. Like, oh, she died. Especially considering, now that I think about it, they're epic douchebags for that. Especially because their son was the one that killed that girl. They're really horrible people for that one. They're already, trash. And then it was like, wow, I didn't even think of that during the episode. I didn't think of that until just now. I was like, wait a minute. They were dicks about that. And their son was the one that killed her. That makes them even worse. But being dicks aside, they were trying to protect their son. So we find out that not only did their son not want them to, hurt anyone else, and he didn't want to hurt anyone else, he didn't even know that they had that girl in there. Or maybe he did. Like, the way they did the dialogue, it seemed like he was completely surprised, because it had only been like one day, and they were like getting the blood out of her. So I don't think he even knew that that's what was happening, because they didn't even have the time to like give him actual human blood. So that was really interesting. And I was like, okay, so it's the father. And, that's how it ends up playing out. It ends up being the father. And then the mom is involved. So I was like, all right, so is it both of them? Is it the whole family? Is it just them and they're trying to protect their son who's not a vampire? It was just going back and forth. Maybe only one of them was a vampire, but the other one knew. So it was like, whatever, I'm protecting my husband. And then it turns out they were both just protecting their son. And I thought it was a really good ending. Like, I love the way that storyline played out, because in the end, the son is like, look, I love the woman that I killed. The last thing I want to do is kill somebody else. And I know I will. I can't control that. And I don't want you guys, kidnapping and, drugging women and, like, sucking their blood out and putting it in the blood bags so that I can just exist, for the rest of my life. And it was just like, man, this is kind of messed up, but it was really well done. He's like, you're gonna take her to the hospital, which they didn't do technically. They just called the cops. It was like, you're gonna take her to the hospital, say that it was me that kidnapped her, because of course, the dad was wearing a mask, or at least wearing a hood. So it's like, all you have to do is say that it was me, and then I took off. And that's what they do. And it was kind of sad and messed up, and he was totally cool about it. It was like, look, I don't ever want to do this again. I don't want to torture you for the rest of your lives having to worry about me either killing a bunch of people or worrying about having to kidnap a bunch of people yourselves just so I'm satiated. So just stop. Like, I don't want any of this. I'm just going to die. And it was just depressing. It was another depressing moment. And it was good. But it was just like, wow, their parents. And of course it ties in that one little line where Dean was like, you're going to let me just chop your head off. It was like, you don't have a son, you don't know what it's like. And of course that ties into the whole Jack thing. And they didn't go, too far into it, but obviously they showed his face because of that moment where it's like, you don't have a son. And it was like, oh, I did. I do kind of know what that feels like. So I thought that was a cool moment. They didn't, like I said, they didn't harp on it or anything, but it was clear if you've been watching the show, obviously they just lost their son. So I thought that was a nice little line just to have that thrown kind of at Dean, where it's like they're going through the motions, doing the normal thing. To get your son out of here, I'm going to chop your head off because you're a vampire. Then he finds out that's not the case. And so they throw that little line, and I thought it was good. But I liked the way that they handled that. And it was interesting how it ended. It ended, I think there was like about 15 minutes left in the episode. But I really enjoyed that. I was like, okay, it's going to be a simple case. They don't really have any leads. Things seem to be a little awkward and weird. It's like, what's going on here? Like, why was the mom freaking out? And it totally made sense after they explained it was the son that was the vampire. It was like, that's why she was flipping out. Like, you weren't at the front. Like, where were you at? And it's like, I was just talking to her and stuff. And it was because she was scared. It was like, you just killed this girl. You might end up killing someone else. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I liked the way that was handled. And he was totally cool about it. It was like, saved his parents, saved the girl. I was like, all right, we're going to go for a ride. And he's like, that's how it works, right? And it's like, yeah, it is. And then they kill him. They chop his head off, over a grave in front of the car. And that was the case. It was done. And I was just like, wow, that was a cool way to end that. It was a nice, like I said, it was a nice twist on the formula. So I really enjoyed that. So it was, even for it being like the Monster of the Week portion of the episode, which it wasn't even the whole episode. It was, split between this and the Chuck stuff. Even for it being like the Monster of the Week portion, it was still really good. Like, just the way it played out was very entertaining and emotional. So I was super happy with that because I was like, oh, it could be just the boring half of the episode, but it wasn't. It had the funny stuff in it. Chuck had some funny stuff too, but it was mostly like dark funny. But I enjoyed it. I was like, all right, this is really cool. And it was a good compliment to the insane stuff going on with Chuck, which started off simple. And we'll start off with the beginning of the episode, which may or may not be tied into Chuck in any way, shape, or form. I was thinking as I was watching the episode, like, maybe some weird stuff is going on where it's Chuck thinking about these things. Like, it's kind of the thoughts that he has going through his head. Because I saw, like, the end of this episode when I was at someone else's house. It was literally just the end, and it was Chuck typing on the laptop. I was like, okay, so Chuck's typing away. So as I was watching, I was like, okay, maybe this dream is some weird like pseudo-prophet stuff going on, because we had it when Chuck touched the bullet wound, it affected Sam. So I was like, okay, maybe there's even more of a connection. So with Sam being asleep, maybe at the time, I was thinking this throughout the episode. I was like, all right, maybe that was Chuck like, typing away at things, and it was just dark, and then the characters die off. And that could still be the case, because we don't technically know what happens to Sam and Dean in like that little story that he wrote. And it was just like, oh, this, Becca's like, this is horrible and stuff. So we don't really know, and it could have been, they didn't show anything to actually kind of prove this, but I was thinking maybe it's possible that the Monster of the Week side of the episode was happening at a different time than Chuck stuff. So it could have been whatever was going on. It was like when Sam really was asleep, that was probably like when Chuck first started writing, and it was actually, Chuck stuff was happening first, and then the Monster of the Week stuff happened. They don't really go into that. They don't explain if there's a difference in the time. So as far as the dream, it's hard to tell, because that was an odd dream. It wasn't just like, oh, there's this random thing happening, or it's a flash forward, which it still could be. And that was one thing I definitely thought of. I was like, this could be the craziest flash forward ever, where somehow the demon blood stuff comes back into play, which I thought was a great callback, because that's always one of the coolest callbacks. Is like, demon blood. It's always hair trigger with that one. So the demon blood comes back. Benny was back, which I thought was cool because that was one of the big things where, if I recall, Benny's technically still in purgatory, and we don't really know what happened with him. And I think if when he died in purgatory, we have the darkness. So it's like he could still totally come back. It could just be one of those things. But it was Dean with the beard and stuff like that, and I was like, okay. And at first it was simple. I was like, okay, this is just a flash forward. And I was like, all right, he's going through. And then there's Benny, and I was like, okay, well that's weird. I didn't see that one coming. So maybe this is an alternate reality, which it still could be. That could be another thing that they decide to do where it ends up being an alternate reality. I just kind of doubt it based on just because of how things went. The demon blood was the one thing where I was like, could that even come back? Like, could that even be a real possibility where it's just like, poof, it comes back, and then Sam seemingly was taken over by someone. Clearly he was, because it was like, where is he? And then the demon's like, he's closer than you think, but we have no idea who he really is. And then it turned out that he took over Sam, which of course kind of instantly, it just takes me back to like the alternate future. Like the first thing I think of is Lucifer, but they don't say it there. That could be on purpose. It could still be that. It could still be a future. It could still be an alternate timeline. I don't really know, and it's super hard to tell. But I am very curious. Like, I don't think that was not a one-off thing. I don't know what that's going to lead to, if that is a crazy flash forward and they just showed it, or what the deal is. I don't know. But I'm very excited for that. And then, of course, that just goes into the normal Chuck stuff. And at first, it's simple. He's down in the dumps. He's got writer's block. He goes to his number one super fan, who's doing pretty well for herself. She's got a husband. She's got kids. She's got her own little Etsy thing where she's like the number one provider of, I forget what she called him, but she basically makes the stages of little scenes, from the Supernatural book series. I thought that was cool. I loved all the fact that they had like all these actual pop figures and stuff, like things you could legitimately buy. I was like, oh man, like they had this the really cool Dean statue figure where he's like pointing the demon blade and stuff. So I thought that was super cool. I was like, man, these are a bunch of things I've wanted to spend all my money on. So it was just kind of funny, like watching the episode. I was like, I wanted to buy that. Like, oh, I wanted to buy that too. So it was a pretty funny episode seeing that. They also even had like posters like in the back. It was a lot of cool stuff, honestly, to look at in the background. And they would have like a poster of like a very Supernatural Christmas and stuff like that. And I was like, I kind of love this episode just for seeing her house and the way they set up like all these things you could legitimately own from the series. And one part, when they show like the mantle, I was trying to figure it out. I was like, it looked like a giant silver chicken's foot or something. I was like, it looks like some weird claw. And I was trying to figure out, I was like, I don't know if I'm just seeing this wrong or that's legitimately just a big silver claw. So maybe you guys could tell me, because I'm like, that's all I'm seeing in my head. I'm like, that looks like a big silver claw. And I just can't think of what that is. But everything they did with Chuck, I was like, I already knew. Even without having seen the ending of the episode, I knew as things progressed, I was like, this isn't going to end super cool and it's just Chuck being nice. I was like, this is going to be bad. And then as soon as the husband comes home, which I thought they said it was supposed to be like 3 days. Maybe I just wasn't listening. But he comes home, and it's right when they're having the conversation where it's like, all right, it's time for you to go. And he's like, no, I think I'll stay. And he snaps his fingers as kids are laughing and the husband's talking. Snaps his fingers, and then there's nothing. And I was like, holy crap, he just did it. And of course, they do reference the fact that he didn't kill them. Because she's like, Becky's like, what did you do? You just killed them. He's like, no, they're not dead. They're just gone. They're just, not here. Whatever that means, who knows? So that we might get a new plane of existence where it's like, this is what happens when God sends people away. This is where they go. So I don't know. That was just a crazy thing. Like, he was just snapping his fingers. And then I was like, he's about to get rid of her too. It's like, I like this. Like, you didn't like my ending and stuff like that. And that's cool. I know what I'm going to do, though. He's like, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know where I'm going. And clearly it's horrible. He wants to just make them suffer more because he's a dick about it. But now we know that's just Chuck at this point. So, snaps his fingers. Everyone's just wiped away. He's just relaxing in his house and he's like, all right, time to get to work. So he's typing away, doing some maniacal, evil, godlike plan. Or I guess it's not godlike, it's just a god plan. And I'm excited. I'm excited for that. I don't know what's going to happen. I know they've already said that not everyone's going to love the ending. And I feel like they're using Chuck a lot as like a meta commentary on a lot of different stuff. Like Chuck, and it's funny, they're making us hate Chuck more and more. Because when he talked to Amara, he mentioned the Game of Thrones ending, and he was like, man, wasn't that great? And it's, of course, huge that everyone hated the ending. And then in this episode, it was the best. He was like, Leviathans, those were fantastic, right? Everybody loved those. And I just thought that was the funniest thing ever. Like, that literally caused so many people to stop watching the series, was just the Leviathans. That caused people to stop watching Supernatural. So it was a great callback. Like, I was like, they just keep making him say like all these things that everyone completely hated. It was like, that was fantastic. Like, that was just the greatest thing ever. Maybe that means Chuck's not that good of a writer. Maybe that's what that proves. I don't know. But that's kind of the comment, the silly comments they're having to make. And it's like, oh, he loves all these things that people hate. And they're specifically story-based things. So that's interesting. I'm excited to see where it goes. But whatever that dream was, it wasn't just a dream. So I cannot wait to see that. It could be another reality. That version, I was going to say of Sam and Dean, but of Sam, would have to leave that dimension of his own accord, or I guess of that demon's accord, whatever possessed him, because Chuck can't pop over to other, dimensions and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe it's a flash forward. Maybe it's not. It's more than just a dream. That's for sure. So I cannot wait to see what happens with that. But all in all, definitely an entertaining episode. Obviously, the Chuck stuff and that dream specifically, that opening, I was just like, I don't know what this means, but I am excited for everything that's about to happen because of it, or leading up to it, possibly, if it is a flash forward. But can't wait for that. That would be super cool. If it was a flash forward, I don't know what that would mean. The demon blood comes back. Like, I can't even think of how that would happen. The Benny stuff, I think, is simple enough, but I don't know. Would it be Lucifer again? Like, if we eventually, at some point, do end up seeing Jack and dealing with the darkness and Billy and all that stuff, maybe it would be Lucifer again. So many questions. I don't know, but loved it for sure. Had me super excited for like the main story beats that we should be looking forward to. But all in all, even like I said, the Monster of the Week stuff, very well done. So I really enjoyed it. I'm excited for the next episode, of course. We'd love to know what you guys thought about this one, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. I've kind of skipped over this because I've been shooting through my reviews, so like the last couple I didn't ask questions. But for this one, I would love to know your theories on the dream. If you do have theories, of course, on what they're going to end up doing with Chuck, with him, the way they've kind of used him. They've only done it twice, but having the little commentary about liking the end of Game of Thrones and liking the Leviathan stuff. How do you feel about that? Like, what do you think that means for what he's planning on doing, at least, for Sam and Dean? Because with him not having power, it's like, this is where I want to go. I don't know how I'm going to get there. He has to figure out how to get his power back to even pull any of this stuff off. So that I would say is what has me interested the most. Like, how could he get to anything insanely crucial or, bombastic when he doesn't have his power yet? So through his writing, I'm sure he'll end up figuring that stuff out. But I would love to know your theories on how that's going to play out. Like I said, what was the dream? Was it an alternate dimension? Was it a flash forward? I would personally go with flash forward, and then they just fill it in, and it does end up working. And I think that's what they're going to end up doing. Or at least that's what Chuck's trying to do, is that flash forward. So that's my theory on it. And he's somehow things are going to lead to that. Of course, Dean won't actually die. Maybe he really will. A part of the not so happy ending. And then somehow Sam is saved, but he killed Dean. That would be super effed up. But that's a heck of a way to end the show, where people definitely wouldn't be happy if one of them killed the other while being possessed. But story-wise, admittedly, for me personally, as Chuck said, it was like, it leaves you with something, though. You feel something. Yeah, you probably wouldn't be happy, though. But we'd love to know your theories on it and what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And, of course, thanks for watching.